Hello, my name is James McCord, and today I will be talking about the three articles that we were assigned for our history discussion over abolition. So, the first one we were assigned was over David Walker. Now, David Walker was a free man born around the 1790s because his mother was a free woman of color while his father was a slave. Therefore, the law stated that he would be free. But that did not exclude him from being a witness to the tortures and absolute horrifying reality of slavery. He personally watched a slave boy beat his mother to death with a whip, and many other atrocities that were committed around that time. Um, Now, David Walker personally abhorred the institution of slavery and all discrimination of blacks throughout his life. He worked towards abolition like ever since he moved up north, and he even hated this discrimination of blacks because he thought that was wrong as well, which were radical ideas at the time. He also believed African Americans were equal, and that he was also a devout Christian and believed abolition was a glorious and heavenly cause. Sorry, glorious and heavenly cause. He believed it was like a God-given fight. That it was his Christian upbringing and his holy mission to end slavery, the institution of slavery. He believes abolition of slavery should be carried out immediately, and that blacks or black civilians or slaves should immediately deny their masters and take up arms if they have to, because their only real master is their God in heaven. So that was the first article that I read. The second article was a speech given by Frederick Douglass to the nation on the 4th of July, which is supposed to be a celebration speech, but Frederick Douglass took this time to really show the irony of him being told to give this speech about freedom and everything else. So he really took that by the reins and basically put everyone in their place for putting him up there, almost as an ironic situation. He was actually born a slave and escaped to the North, and when he escaped to the North for the rest of his life, he fought against the institution of slavery and made multiple periodicals and different notes and everything else about how bad slavery was. So he was asked to do this 4th of July speech, and Frederick Douglass was, of course, an abolitionist, and he believed it's completely wrong and that it was the greatest sin and shame of America. That was one of his quotes, is that it's the greatest sin and shame of America at the time. He personally viewed the black man as completely equal to the white man and proceeds to name off how they're the same. Basically naming off like all the similarities of what black men and white men would want, what they do around the United States, all of their jobs, their roles in families, everything that the white man can compare to, he made clear that the black man is the same thing, is the same way. He also brings up that they all worship the same God and that the same Christian God. Therefore, if all of them have the same master, which is the God in heaven, why is it that the black man is being servitude to just mere man as well? Which brings up a really good point. But he basically said the action that needs to be taken is that the men in power and all men must get rid of their hypocrisy and realize that slavery is the greatest sin to ever touch this republic, to ever touch the United States of America. I mean, it was brought up at the 4th of July in 1776 that all men are created equal with certain inalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And liberty is one of those three. And it's kind of ironic that the black man did not achieve this until over 100 years later. So the last one that was brought up was basically a document made by the American Anti-Slavery Society, the Declaration of Rights and Sentiments, I believe the name was. Basically what that document says is that they all signed it, and they said that they all believe that it is completely wrong to own another man and that it must end immediately, that slavery is a horrible institution and should end immediately. So They viewed African Americans as brothers. They literally mention in their Declaration of Sentiments that their brothers are the African Americans, which is a good way to look at it. You know, they're human men, they're human women, human children. They just look a little different than the majority population in the United States at the time. And they believe that slavery, along with the other two articles, that slavery is a sin against God. Sorry about that. The Declaration of Sentiments also believes that slaves should be immediately freed and no compensation should be given to the masters that they are freed from, because that would prove their point. That would prove the master's point that they were property that was owned when they're actually human men and should not be owned as property. Therefore, if any compensation is to be given, it should be given to the slaves who had been so beat down for countless centuries. So that was the view of the three articles that we were assigned, and the three people that, or the two people and the group of people that wrote these abolition statements, which were considered extremely radical at the time, even though to us that seems completely normal and like acceptable to say stuff like that. But those are the three articles that I covered, and hope you enjoyed. Thank you.